Hello there, 7th graders. This is teacher Krishna, and welcome to our science class for week number 18. Let me tell you that today we're going to continue with the topic we were studying last week, so you can continue your summary in the Word document that you have from last week. Today we're going to continue studying lesson number 1 in pages 106 to 109. Our ending mind for the topic is the following. Explains how stress causes movement at faults by examining the pictures and deciding what kind of fault is shown in each. The ending mind is basically the same one as last week because it's part of the same topic, so there is no need to copy it again. You can just continue writing down your summary in your Word document. We're going to start by answering a question, which is, how does plate movement create new landforms? Remember that plate tectonics are always in motion. Even though we cannot see it with our naked eyes, they are always moving. So the motion of plate tectonics generates changes in the fields, such as mountains and anticlines. We have already studied that plate tectonics can diverge, converge, or transform. And whenever we expose land to those changes in the plate tectonics, it is possible to create mountains or anticlines. In some cases, rocks just bend over without breaking, and that causes land to elevate. So when we mention the elevation of land, we are meaning that we are creating like a mountain or just a valley. We have a very important term to analyze, which is fault. It happens when rocks bend over. They can be as small as a couple of centimeters, or they can have some kilometers wide. It is basically represented in the picture that we have right here. So just like you can notice, the land is basically changing. It's not anymore plain, but now we're getting some elevation and some descension as well. And that elevation is what we call fault. Of course, talking about the motion of plate tectonics and the changing in land. Alright, so now we're going to analyze what we were mentioning before, anticline, and we're going to analyze a little bit what syncline is as well. So anticline is when the land bends upwards. So if land starts going up, that means that it is an anticline. We have syncline, which is when the land bends downwards. So if it is going up, anticline, and if it is going down, it's a syncline. And we have another important term, which is folded mountains. They form when the land bends over during the collision of two plate tectonics. So this is pretty much related to what we have been studying right now. And one more time, what happens is that when two plate tectonics converge, if rocks do not break down, but they just start folding above, they are going to create a mountain. Alright, and now here we have another interesting picture that we need to analyze, which is a fault block mountains. Let's analyze it. What is it? Fault block mountains happens when the tension of Earth's crust causes the formation of faults. This happens when two plate tectonics diverge from each other. So let's suppose that we already have a mountain, just like the one that is right there. You need to remember that when plate tectonics diverge, that means that they are going to separate from each other. So in this case, if the mountains are the ones that are right in the middle where the plate tectonics are separating, what is going to happen is that land is going to start getting at a lower level from what the mountain actually is. So when that happens, of course, we're going to have a higher mountain in comparison to the ground that is surrounding it. And the ground that is right around the mountain is going to get lower and lower with the motion of plate tectonics. And that is something we call stretching Earth's crust. So that was a very quick topic because it was very little content, the one that we had to study today. So what is your evaluation? So please read and summarize the first part from lesson number. Oh, I'm sorry. This should be the second part of lesson number 1, which will be pages 106 to 109. Focus especially in page 109. All right, and what do you have to do then? You have to create a PowerPoint presentation that answers the following questions. So, I have a lot of questions that are going to help us out to have a small introduction on what we are going to study later on. So, take your time to do some research on the internet, and of course, create your PowerPoint presentation with the following questions. You have, why do earthquakes happen? How do scientists measure the intensity of an earthquake? What is an epicenter? What are the effects that an earthquake causes? And lastly, what are the recommendations that you need to follow during an earthquake? One more time, the recommendation that I always give to you whenever you do a homework that is similar to this one: do not copy and paste the information directly from internet. Take your time to read it, to investigate, and of course, later on, write down your summary with your own words. Do not simply copy and paste it. It is important for you to notice the rubric that I'm going to use to grade your presentations. So these are the aspects that will be evaluated. You need to include an introduction and a conclusion to your presentation. You need to include meaningful information about lesson 4.1. So, how can you relate the information we have studied on topic 4.1 with the earthquakes? I'm going to give you some example. So, we have studied that plate tectonics are in constant motion. So, when they move a little bit more than they should, then they are going to create an earthquake. Okay, so that is just one example of how you can relate the earthquake with the topic from 4.1. And lastly, what I'm going to check is the order and the general appearance of your presentation, which will be 1 point. So that is it for today's lesson, guys. I will be seeing you during the Zoom session. So take advantage of the time that you have right now so you can complete it and you don't have to work later on this presentation. So goodbye, guys. I will see you next week.